Hello my lovelies and welcome to Divination Death Witch. I'm Rain and today we are actually doing a redo or a reshoot, if you will, of an older video I had done teaching you how to read playing cards as if they were tarot cards. Now, in light of recent events, I felt that it was really important to not only redo this video but to create a resource to go along with it. I'll talk about that as we go on. But in light of recent events, I am already feeling the effects in that it is extremely difficult and or impossible for me to get new tarot decks right now. The reason being, there is absolutely no store in my town that sells tarot cards. I would have to go to the nearest big city to even find a Barnes & Noble to go into and purchase tarot cards directly. And as far as ordering them online, I've already experienced that Amazon does not deliver where we are. So anything ordered through something like that either has to come through USPS or UPS or FedEx. So far, the most reliable of that has been UPS here, but even they, I'm told, you really cannot count on to deliver timely or at all. Getting anything by USPS here is quite difficult. In fact, they say that if something goes through the Baton Rouge hub, which apparently it has to in order to get to us, you can pretty much consider it gone. Like the chances that you're going to get it are very, very minimal. So given all of that and thinking on things, I thought it would be a really good time to redo this video, because I think that for any of us who are interested in divination, either we are longtime readers or for those who are just learning how to read, it's a good idea to have ways of reading and doing divination, both if you want to predict the future, if that's your thing, or if you want to do spiritual work. I think that we at least have to have alternative methods in our back pocket, and playing cards are a really good back pocket method, if you will, if you prefer tarot as your primary method. But to know playing card methods, I think, is a very prudent thing at this time, because playing cards are pretty easy to get. My husband just got me a deck of playing cards. It's a cute little frog deck. Here, let me grab it and show you. Adorable little frog deck at Five Below for $1. So they are affordable, they are accessible, and they probably will continue to be so, and that just makes them a good alternative for if you can't get a hold of tarot cards. I am increasing the amount of educational material that I'm putting out, because I think right now is a very important time for us to spread information. And in that vein, the PDF that I have created to go along with this video is available on my Patreon for both free and paid members, because I think it's important that we spread as much information as we can. Now, also, I'm going to be showing you today how to read playing cards as if they were tarot cards, but there are many systems using playing cards that have their own meanings, their own spreads, their own styles, and all of that. So for paid members over on my Patreon, I do have a PDF that teaches you a vintage French method of playing card divination. And I also just added today, before recording this video, a PDF that teaches you the game of hope, which is done with a Lenormand deck. But the thing is, you can read, because Lenormand started out being done with playing cards and then specific Lenormand decks were created. So you can read Lenormand with playing cards as well. And so in that PDF, I teach you the game of hope, which can be played strictly as a parlor game, or it can be played as a divination game. And in that, not only do I give you the Lenormand meanings, but I give you which card in a standard deck of playing cards the Lenormand cards correspond to. So that particular PDF could also be used with a deck of playing cards, and you could use it to learn how to read playing cards as Lenormand cards if you wanted, since the correspondences are in there. But let's dive into reading playing cards as tarot cards. Now, you may already be, questioning this. A deck of tarot cards has 78 cards. A deck of playing cards has 52. So obviously we have to make some adjustments in how we do these readings. The biggest difference is that for the traditional way of reading playing cards as tarot cards, there are no majors. There's no major arcana in this method, traditionally. And so I always tell students to keep that in mind when you're forming your questions for these readings, because majors are about big life changes, big life events, and they're about overarching archetypes. And so we won't have those elements in these readings. So when you're forming your question, remember that the minor arcana, which is essentially what we're working with here, is about the small details, the day-to-day details, the minutia of things. So you can certainly read about a major life event, but you're getting the day-to-day details or the small details or the minutia about that large event. So just keep that in mind when you're forming your questions. Make sure that you are forming the best question for a reading that is all about the details, the nitty-gritty of the topic. The other main difference that we have is that in the tarot, there are 4 cards per suit in the court cards. In tarot, we have the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. In a standard deck of playing cards, we only have 3 court cards per suit. We have the jack, the queen, and the king. Kings and queens will just be kings or queens, just as they are in tarot. You will need to make a decision as a reader as to whether or not you will interpret the jacks as pages or as knights. When I first started, I liked to interpret the jacks as pages, but as time went on, I found that I preferred today, contemporarily, to interpret the jacks as knights. It works better to me. I will tell you that among those who read playing cards as tarot cards, it is much more common for me to see a reader interpret the jacks as knights than it is as pages. But there isn't a right or a wrong here. It's whatever works for you. So when students are learning to do this, I recommend that you try it both ways. So ask a question, lay out your spread, and then interpret the jack as both a page and a knight in that spread. See which way resonates more, which feels more natural to you. Experiment for a little bit, but then settle on one or the other. You want to choose whether you're going to interpret it as a page or a knight, and then stick with that going forward. But it's okay to experiment a little in the beginning and see which works best for you as an individual reader. Once you've settled on one, just stick to that. Unless, like I did, you feel that you need to completely change and switch to the other method. Now, this video is going to presume that you already know how to read tarot, so I'm not going to go over meanings of cards. If you are new to tarot, that is perfectly okay. You can still use this information. You're just going to need to have a list of standard tarot card meanings on hand so that you can interpret the cards. As far as spreads go, I'm not going to teach you any specific spreads either. For the most part, just about any spread that is designed for the tarot can be used with playing cards in place of tarot cards. The only exceptions are, like, there's a mediumship reading that I teach on here, and I did in one of my lives, where you have to separate the tarot deck into court cards, majors, and minors, and then each pile becomes its own deck and has its own significance in that spread. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do a reading like that using playing cards in place of tarot cards. So there are a couple of limitations, but by and large, whatever spread you would use for a tarot deck, you can use when you're using playing cards as if they were tarot cards. This method is actually very simple. Really, all you're doing is corresponding the suits of the playing cards to the suits of the tarot. So The ace of spades will correspond to an ace in the tarot. A 3 will correspond to a 3, a 4 will correspond to a 4, etc. Really what you need to memorize in order to do this, so long as you already know the meanings of the tarot cards, is just which suit corresponds to which suit in tarot. So the spades correspond to swords, the hearts correspond to cups, the clubs correspond to clubs or staffs or wands, whichever your deck that you normally work with calls them, and the diamonds correspond to pentacles. Now, how I remembered this when I was first starting out is spades are pointy, as are swords. Cups have to do with emotions, and we often consider emotions connected with the heart. Clubs are clubs, staves, wands. That just is easily a one-to-one for me. And pentacles are about finances or physical resources, and diamonds are pricey, expensive. They have to do with money and physical resources. So that's just how I remember them. And I apologize for all of the sirens, if you could hear them going by. But it's just that simple. Spades are swords, hearts are cups, clubs are clubs, diamonds are pentacles. And then whatever it is in the playing card, that's the tarot card you're corresponding it to. So the ace of spades is the ace of swords. The 2 of hearts is the 2 of cups. The 3 of clubs is the 3 of clubs. The 4 of diamonds is the 4 of pentacles. The king of diamonds is the king of pentacles. The queen of hearts is the queen of cups, and so on. And the only time that you really have to think too much about it is you have to decide if you are interpreting jacks as pages or knights. But if you go with, let's say, knights, as I do, then the jack of spades is the knight of swords, the jack of hearts is the knight of cups, the jack of clubs is the knight of clubs, and the jack of diamonds is the jack of pentacles. It's really that simple. You're just equating a card in the playing card deck directly over to a card in the tarot. So it's really straightforward and simple. You just have to remember which suit is which. And again, there is a PDF available on my Patreon for free and paid members. Now, I do want to add this little tidbit because, as you see here, we've already discussed about how we don't have all 78 cards from the tarot and that there are no majors. Well, if you've seen the Jane Austen tarot deck, the creator of that did create a method where they sort of double up. Some of the cards in the minors are also labeled as the majors. So 22 of the cards of the deck also correspond to a card in the major arcana. That's why I have the Joker here, because in that method, Oakley corresponds the Joker to the Fool. So if you are going to use that method, you will be using a 53 card deck because you'll be using the standard 52 cards plus the Joker so that the Joker can represent the Fool. Now, I'm not going to go into which of the 22 cards she associates with which of the majors, but I do have that all written out for you in the PDF on the Patreon. And again, the link to the Patreon is in the description box below, but you can get that for free from the Patreon, and it will tell you which playing cards that Oakley corresponds to which of the major arcana. The only thing is that if you are going to read like that, which I have done because I have the Jane Austen tarot deck, you are in each and every reading, as you're interpreting the cards, you're going to have to decide whether it's the minor arcana meaning or the major arcana meaning that you need to use in that specific reading. So every reading you're going to have to figure out which you are using if one of those 22 cards comes up in your reading. Well, 21 of those cards, because the Joker is always the Fool. But that method is outlined in the PDF that you can pick up on my Patreon. So if you want to put in a little bit of extra work, a little bit of extra memorization, you can then incorporate the majors into this system if you'd like. And again, I do have that PDF available. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I will make sure that I answer them either in the comments, or if I get enough questions on a certain topic, I will do a video responding. But hopefully you found this helpful. Like I said, you know, hit me up with any questions you have in the comments down below. Please give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And until I see you again, my lovelies, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.